In 1993, my dad couldn't handle the scarcity moments in Cuba due to 1990, 1989. In 1993, my dad couldn't handle the scarcity moments in Cuba due to 1990, 1989, the communist wall fell. So basically Russia was basically supplying to Cuba all the supplies, food and all the things that we were eating. Due to that scarcity, Cuba was alone and the government got even worse. A pound of pork was so expensive. It used to be approximately like 100 pesos, which was very expensive at that time. So people had the money, but there was no food, so there was no supply. I mean, it was such a hard time for us. So my dad got so tired of dealing with that he's like, that's it, this is it. I'd rather put my family, risk their life trying to hit the land of the freedom, try than rather just say I'm gonna put up with this for the rest of my life. So that's when he made that decision, and he's like, I'm gonna build a raft. He finally found a mechanic in town. They became really good friends, and they started building in pieces. Why they build it in pieces? It was very funny to me, because due to the fact that the government can come into your house and inspect it at any given time for any reason whatsoever, they wanted to make sure that they didn't find the whole entire raft in their homes. So they couldn't put judgment against anybody. So basically they built it in pieces. And now I understand what was in piece. It was not their plan. Basically it was God's plan. They made a square, like basically a wagon that 8 to 10 people will fit in there. It was just us, that was 4, and this other family, there were 3. So he's like, we have plenty of space, we'll be fine. So they built it for 8 to 10 people. And the wagon, if you see the wagon, people will think, oh, you're gonna go to the farm to pick up some food for pigs or chicken or hen. So, since that was normal in that time, people couldn't find food. They had to go to the farm and grow it themselves. So even the people in the city had to go into the farm to do that. So that was pretty common at that moment. So there was the wagon, and then they did the side of it. And the side of it was filled completely with this gas or this air that's supposedly supposed to float. The valve of the raft, which is the pointed part of it, it was in my dad's house. So if you put on that square, you put the side of it, and the valve becomes a raft. They never thought it was that technologically. They were just thought, hey, this was our invention. Funny that they knew a couple of weeks before we left. There was this magazine known, and actually the magazine it was here from the United States, called Popular Mechanic. And that Popular Mechanic, basically they would feature technology and things back in those days that will, breaking news or what they did. And there was this boat in the front of that magazine. I believe it was from 1960 to 1965, I can't remember. But in that boat says, we invented the unsinkable boat. And when my dad saw this magazine, the same boat that was in that magazine was the same raft my dad and his partner built. Right there, they're like, we're not no mechanics, we're no engineer. Like, God gave us this plan. It was built exactly as the one in that magazine. So right there, my father is like, this is my confirmation that what we're doing, we're moving forward. And let me tell you, we had so much struggle to get out of the island. It was one of the toughest thing ever. But due to that, my dad kept going by faith. He's like, God gave me a yes. God told me, and he gave me a plan or something that I was not an engineer. I was not a mechanic. And funny enough, I did experience, and through this story, I will tell you how we prove that boat was unsinkable because the way they did it. So they're like, okay, we have the raft, but we don't have the way to get out of the island. Due to us living in Guantanamo, a lot of people know when every time I tell everybody I'm from Guantanamo, they're like, oh, you're from the base of Guantanamo. I'm like, no, Guantanamo is the city, and then the Navy base, that is the United States, until today's day, they have that Navy base, is two different, obviously, cities. So that was our goal. Due to Guantanamo being in the corner of the island, it was impossible for us to travel to Florida. It would take probably weeks. So our next nearest thing, it was the Army base from the United States. So there's two ways to go to the Navy base of Guantanamo. One is through the water, swimming, or through a raft or boat, and the other one is going through a minefield. As you see, a minefield is I think it was the worst idea you can think of, especially with a family of 4. So that's why my dad chose the raft, because it was a very small stretch. That whole entire journey was supposed to take no more than an hour. It did not take an hour for us. It took 14 long hours. So we had the raft, and then we had to partner with another group of people because they had the way how to get out, which was the way of, there was a private beach that we needed to upload the boat, the raft, but all those beaches were super guarded by police and Coast Guard of the communists and the government. So there was no way to get out, but the people that we partner with, they bought all those guards with money, with clothes, with many things. So basically we provided them a raft, and they provided the exit plan. The first exit plan my dad has was very, very dangerous, where it was basically 60-40 plan, where you could lose your life. It was like throwing yourself out of somewhere. It was out of this world. But God provided these other people that they were Christian too. So we were from the Pentecostal church, and these people were from Baptist church. And this Baptist people, they had a raft. It was not a raft, it was more, we had a boat and they had a raft, like a safety raft that are in the airplanes. But you know that those safety raft, they're round. So they couldn't go nowhere because obviously that's just to float. So they proposed to us for us to pull them with our boat. And that's exactly what we did. So all the men's, we were 23 totals. And in those 23 people, there were 8 were kids. The youngest was a 9-month-old baby. I was 10, there was a couple of us, I was 10, and there was from every age you can imagine. But I do remember the youngest was a 9-month-old baby. The wife wanted to escape because her husband was here and there was no way to meet her husband. He left a couple months before, so obviously she was missing her husband. And she even I cannot even imagine, because I have a 9-month-old baby right now, how courageous of this woman to put her baby in the water, of how desperate it is just to see her husband and seek freedom. So I can relate right now in my life, living through this. But it was 23 people. So that was the plan. So all the men went on the boat, and all the women and kids were in the raft. Why in the raft? That raft was very secure. Due to our Army airplanes, those rafts have 2 separations. So if one of them deflate, there's a second section. And on top of that, there was a little hoodie that will cover us. Mind you, that raft was all very bright colors. So it was as bright as you can think, because that's a raft meant to be seen in the water. So if anybody had an emergency, they created those rafts to be seen from any moment. So that was what was against us in that whole entire thing. So we were trying to escape 3 points, that there was 3 points that were guarded. We bought 1. So that was the exit. But there was 2 points of guards that was still seeing us. So that was another con that was against us, that we had to overcome that. So it was very, very traumatic that time. I would not forget. We all came in big trucks. all hitting, and the boat was there, and the raft was there, and all of us were hush hush. I remember leaving my house at 7 p.m. It was when we left our town to go to the beach. I was so nervous. I remember that, I was so nervous. I was holding my little brother. At that time, he was 4 years old. But I could be so more nervous for my parents, because I knew exactly, I was mentioning to somebody what it is to be a 10-year-old in the communists. And basically a 10-year-old person or 10-year-old kid in Cuba, it's same way as a 16 to a 17-year-old here in the United States. Why? Because all the things that you're exposed to, survivorship, negotiation, basically, so you are exposed to so much thing that kids are not exposed here. So that's why I was so nervous for what was about to do. I remember my mom, prior to my little brother, saying, you have to be quiet, because once we get to the other place, you're gonna get a bike. So my brother was so quiet as a 4-year-old, because he knows that he couldn't say it. If not, he was not gonna get that bike. That was his dream. So that's basically was the whole entire way to the beach. It was all quiet. I remember nobody spoke to nobody. It was pure silent. Mind you, that half of the people we didn't know each other. So we were very nervous of, are they gonna turn us in? But they say they're Christian, but we don't have no way out. What's gonna happen? This thing is sinking, it's deflating. So the man is like, oh my God, if this is deflating, what are we gonna? Came on top of us. And guess what? Nobody knows how that hood came on top of us. Once we started to swimming to get to that boat. And it was so traumatic. He was on top of the raft with a bucket pulling water off. And guess what? That boat did not sink. It was floating, no air. So you have all these people on top of each other breathing. So